Alright, Frankie, pizza review time. We've got Jared's Gluten Free Pizza, what it looks like his house, but he claims to be the self-proclaimed Duke of Deep Dish, so we're going to review it because it's one bite, everybody knows the rules. One bite, everybody knows the rules, and we've tried all the places. We've tried Uno, we tried Paisano, Malnati's, but never this place. You can see, just like every deep dish place, I'm having trouble opening the boxes, Frankie. I don't know how. We will check on Mr. Portnoy in a little bit, but yeah, gluten-free pizza. Cue the intro. Hey folks, welcome to the Late Night Snack. I'm your host, Jared Lendy. Let's talk. As many of you know, one of my favorite foods is pizza, specifically Chicago-style deep dish. I know there are going to be a lot of people in Chicago in the comments right now saying, oh, deep dish is not the real thing. Tavern style is the real thing for Chicago. No, you're wrong. You just haven't had good deep dish. Listen, avoid people that say like Lou Malnati's or Giordano's is good. They don't know what they're talking about. Go to places like Pizzeria Uno, Paisano, or Gino's East, and you'll be good. If you take a look at my back catalog, you'll notice that one of the first few recipes on this channel was my deep dish dough. And I've been baking it on a regular basis ever since. Heck, they don't call me the self-proclaimed Duke of Deep Dish for nothing. Unfortunately, there are some people that cannot have this Chicago treasure, and that is because of a protein called gluten. And in order for us to solve this obstacle, we need to first define what exactly is gluten, because there is nothing worse than not knowing what a word is. I know this from my confirmation day. Side note, this following cutaway is based on true events on my actual confirmation at the Catholic Church. Jared, do you renounce the devil and all his works? Oh, dang it. What does the word renounce mean? Okay, Jared. The Cardinal came here all the way from downtown. You can do this. Let's see. Renounce sounds like denounce, so maybe it means the opposite, right? Well, you got a 50-50 shot, so let's try. Say no. No? What? No? Oh, you're on your own, pal. Yes, I renounce them. Okay, much better. Gluten is a chain of two distinct proteins found in wheat flour. There's the gliadin, which gives us extensibility, or the strength of the dough, and there's glutenin, which gives us the elasticity, or the ability to stretch or expand. Combine these two with water and you get a chain of complex proteins called gluten, which is perfect for giving breads and baked goods the shape and structure it needs for the final product. It's really good stuff. But for a certain percentage of the population, there are some drawbacks, including a form of gluten intolerance or celiac disease. I know quite a few people that are celiacs, and it hurts to see that they're not able to have deep dish. Until now. Because I'm going to make my own gluten-free pizza by taking my original dough and I'm going to turn it into a gluten-free dough. And we'll compare it with my original and see how it turns out. It'll be fun. The start of the dough is not changed. You just add a cup of warm water into a large bowl, followed by 2 packets of the active dry yeast. Now, I like to save money by buying my yeast in bulk. If you want to do that too, just remember that 2 1/4 teaspoons of this equals 1 packet, so just double that and you'll be good. And to that we are going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, a pinch of sugar, and 6 tablespoons of butter melted. And give that a stir. Now, my original recipe used a combination of corn oil and olive oil, but I like to be a little healthier now, so it's just going to be straight olive oil for this one. You can use whatever combination you want, but for me, I'm just doing 3/4 of a cup of extra virgin olive oil. Now, this is where we break away from the original recipe because we need to find items that mimic the extensibility and elasticity of wheat flour. And for that, you're going to need a combination of whole grain flours mixed with a starch and a thickener of some kind. Now, If I were to do this research and make my own, this video probably would not be out for another couple months. So instead, I just recommend you reach for this 22-ounce bag of Bob's Red Mill 1-to-1 baking flour. It's convenient, plus you do not have to measure anything out. All you have to do is just pop this into here and just mix it all to combine. I just recommend just putting this in increments, that way you don't get everything all over. Now, to save refrigerator space, I just transfer this into a gallon-sized zip-top bag, and just like my original dough, it goes directly into the refrigerator for at least overnight until it's ready to be used. Now, I want to compare the two different types of doughs, so I'm going to make the one with wheat flour. If you want to follow along with that original recipe, click the original video up here. Otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow. And normally, I don't even do deep dish reviews. Deep dish has its own scale of itself. Having a lot of trouble here, Frankie. Can you give me my knife? Thanks, Frankie. No, it's like opening a safe. I don't know how people in Chicago do it. And we're back, folks. It's the next day, and the regular dough is doubled in size, is uniform, and has a nice feel to it. While in comparison, the gluten-free dough has a consistency of wet sand, breaks apart easily, and hasn't really grown that much. For these reasons, I don't think they'll pop out well in a regular 14-inch deep dish pan, so instead, I just recommend dividing it into two 10-inch deep dish pans. That way it'll be easier, plus you get two pizzas out of it. Also, side note, if you cannot find a 10-inch deep dish pan, I just recommend using a 10-inch cake pan instead. If you're making a gluten-free and a regular deep dish dough, always start with the gluten-free one to avoid cross-contamination. So, what you're going to do is add a touch of olive oil into the pan, and using a paper towel, you are just going to spread the oil around the pan. That way, it'll be easier to pop out later on. After letting the dough sit for an hour at room temp, I divided them into their 10-inch pans, so I'm just going to press down on the dough, starting from the center, and working my way to the edges. And when you get to the edge, you're just gonna pull back on it just like so. That way it gets to the sides. Make sure to press onto it as best as you can. And now we can work on the other one. I'm adding about 2 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese into the pan. You might be tempted to add more, but deep dish is a balancing act. You don't want one thing outshining the other. In Chicago, we do things a little differently. We place the cheese on first, then toppings, then sauce. So I'm going to show you what I call the Kaleidoscope. I call it that because when one of my best friends, Pete, tried it for the first time, he said that it tasted like he bit into a kaleidoscope of flavor. So that starts out with some pepperoni, followed by some Chicago-style Italian sausage. The Chicago-style one's different because it has garlic into the sausage. Most of them have fennel in it, but I prefer the garlic sausage for this application and more. Next we have some sliced up mushrooms, some diced up onions, not a lot, the same size green pepper, and lastly the secret ingredient, bacon bits. Now we can work on the sauce. I like to do a combination of tomatoes, so right here I have a can of petite diced and crushed tomatoes, so I'm going to open these up and put it in this bowl to mix. These two cans fit this bowl perfectly. What you're going to do is just grab a ladleful and just place it on the pizza. Might need a little bit more. And just spread it all around the pizza. And we're almost done. We need the sauce to thicken up a little bit while cooking in the oven, so I like to add just a little bit of cornstarch to help that out. And to help flavor the pizza sauce, I'm just going to add a little bit of Parmesan cheese, followed by some oregano. And it's ready for the oven. Now these go into a 400-degree oven, and we'll check on them after 15 minutes. I also made the ones with gluten, so we can compare them. Frankie, I still can't get this dang thing open. Perfect. Thank you. Now we just gotta get in to one of the corners right here. Well, folks, it's about 15 minutes in. The ones on the top are the gluten-free ones. The ones on the bottom are the ones with gluten. And as you can see, both of them are cooking quite nicely. So I'm just going to rotate them. So the ones on the bottom are going to be on top. The ones on the top are going to be on the bottom. And we'll check on them after another 15 minutes or so. Now you might be wondering, hey Jared, why do people even get celiacs or gluten intolerance in the first place? Well, folks, it has a lot to do with genetics and the lost science of basic biology. Watch as I explain with the power of Punnett squares. Each person has a set of dominant and recessive genes. We'll use height as an example. Let's say that you got somebody that's pretty tall, about 6 foot. All the ladies love him. And he marries somebody that's pretty short. We'll represent that by a small t. Now, if we chart this out, you'll see that Dad gives each one of the kids the tall gene, and Mom gives each of the kids a recessive short gene. So, if we figure all this out, all of the kids are going to have the tall gene and are going to end up being tall because of the dominant gene, but they also carry the recessive gene. But let's say that this guy right here marries an Italian woman, 100% Italian woman. Well, that changes everything. Now let's take a look at this happy couple. You've got the dominant and recessive gene for Dad, and let's just say you've got a dominant and recessive gene for Mom. Now if we chart this out, you will see that got dual dominant genes for about 25% of this. So this guy's going to be tall, and his kids are no matter what. Now if you take a look, you'll see there's a 50% chance of Mom and Dad having the same genes as these two types of kids because they have the same thing, dominant recessive, dominant recessive. But you've got a recessive right here, and you got a recessive right here. This means that there's a 25% chance that this kid is going to end up being short. And the dating world's not going to be fun for him. No, sir. While his other 5 siblings are going to be married with kids, he's going to suffer on dating apps, or what I like to call Protestant purgatory. He's just going to be ignored by shallow women who refuse to talk to anyone whose height starts with the number 5 because they like wearing heels. And he's going to spend like sleepless nights saying like, oh, will I ever find someone? Or do I have to embrace my gift of singleness just like Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 7? I am freaking sick of it. I mean, this guy is... I mean, of course, being celiac and gluten intolerant is a lot worse than being a few inches shorter. But, you know, speaking of which, let's just check on the gluten-free pizzas and see how they're doing. Both the gluten-free and the regular deep dish doughs were done after a total cook time of 50 minutes, but it could be different depending on your oven. So the signs you'll want to be looking for is that the crust is going to have a nice golden brown color, and if you look closely, the pizza's actually pulling away from the deep dish pan. So both of those are good signs that they're ready. But I just like to wait another 10 minutes just so these cool down. Now you've got a couple options for serving. You could either just cut it right out of the pan, or you can do what the pros do. Just give it a couple tosses, and with a flick of the wrist, pops right out of the pan. And now you can cut. For the 10-inch pans, I just like to do 6 slices. So one right here, one like so, and one down the middle of that. Perfect. And we're ready to compare the two pizzas. We have the regular one right here, and we have the gluten-free one right here. Mainstream media will say that you have to eat this with a knife and fork, but that is completely optional. I don't do it on most occasions. So here is the regular one first. That is a perfectly balanced pizza. Got a nice crust to it, just the right amount of cheese to balance everything out, and it feels like a kaleidoscope of flavor has just entered my mouth. There's a reason why they call me the self-proclaimed Duke of Deep Dish. Now let's try the one with the gluten-free dough. It's actually a little sturdier than the other one. Once again, a fantastic dough. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there's a little bit of a texture difference, but I don't think that's that noticeable. Honestly, if you had a blind taste test, I don't think that many people will actually know the difference. Both of them are fantastic pizza doughs. It's flaking just like the other one. Not really much of a change. So if you're looking for a good alternative to regular deep dish dough, give this one a try. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight, folks. Until next time, I'm Jared Lendy with Late Night Snack. Good night. I think I finally got it open, Frankie. You know, it takes less time to steal a catalytic converter off a car in Chicago than to open one of these pizza boxes here for deep dish. We got the pizza right here. Looks pretty good. Got the nice crust, nice cheese section, equal distribution of sauce. We got one bite, everybody knows the rules. One bite, everybody knows the rules. Here we go. Nope. Gluten-free has a certain texture to it. Other than that, I think it's pretty good. Nope. I would give this a 10, but the pizza box was just too hard to open, so I'm just going to give it a 9.8. I think that's a pretty good score. So, Jared's Gluten-Free Pizza, 9.8.
Don't forget to share, comment, and like this YouTube video. And make sure that you're subscribed to Jared Lendy Show.